I am so grateful to get to be here to share with you a few tools that I believe are going to unlock new possibilities for all of you in your crafts as architects of organizational resilience. But before we get there, let's take a step back. We've come here from all over the place, right? We represent unique industries and organizations with their own challenges, but there are two things every single person in this audience in particular has in common. The first is that we are all wondering what a poet is doing speaking to so many people who have jobs. And fair enough, so I promise we're going to get to that. But the second thing we have in common is that we're all here in pursuit of excellence for our organizations. Now, whether we're healthcare leaders who measure that excellence through patient outcomes and operational efficiency, or we're manufacturers who measure it through low defect rates and cycle times, we're all here because we want to build organizations that are fit to weather any storm, which raises the question, now that we are here together, what's the best way for us to nurture that spirit of excellence? Well, here's where the poetry thing comes back in. I want to tell you a quick story. So years ago, a young man named Robert was making his living as a full-time poet. He's living the artist's lifestyle, the bohemian dream, which in the poetry community is a phrase we use to say he was broke. And so Robert wants to earn a little extra cash, and one day he's reading a magazine. He sees an ad that says, "Submissions wanted, we'll pay for poems." And Robert thinks, this is my chance to make a little bit of cash. And so Robert writes this gorgeous poem on a piece of paper, licks and seals it in an envelope, sends it off to the papers in New York City, and he waits. And a few months later, he receives the greatest news of his life. The poem he'd written had been selected to be published in the New York Independent magazine, meaning that he was about to walk away with the life-changing sum of $15. Which is a lot of money to most poets today, so imagine what this felt like back in 1894. Folks, this meant Robert was rich, and so he throws aside his pen and paper. He picks up his earnings and starts spending like nobody's business. He's eating well, drinking good, not writing at all, until one day he notices his small fortune is running a little thin. So he says, no problem, I think I can do this again. And so he reverse engineers his last success, writes another poem in the exact same style, sends it off to the papers, and he gets his poem published, but this time he gets a few rejections first. He says, that's strange. I mean, this is a damn good poem. But no matter, once again, he throws aside his pen and paper, he picks up his earnings, starts spending like nobody's business, he's eating well, drinking good, not writing at all, until once again, his small fortune is running a little thin. So you know where this is about to go. He writes another poem in the same style, sends it off, but this time, he gets a whole pile of rejections. And this time, nobody wants to publish Robert's poem. And Robert's left to wonder how it could be that a style that so recently served him so well no longer does. So as you may be starting to guess, this is a story about poetry that's not really about poetry, right? We all eventually realize that even our most monumental success can only deliver us temporary excellence, because as time passes, our users, our customers, our industry, the world changes. So the things that once helped us stand out and deliver excellence start to look kind of ordinary. But as human beings, we get so wrapped up in past success that often we turn to the same tactics over and over. Just like Robert, we write the same poem again and again until one day they fail us, and when they do, we kind of panic, right? We search for another creative stunts we can pull to give ourselves a hit at that feeling of excellence, not realizing that if we only make those innovations when we're standing on the back foot, we're walking back into the same trap all of us want to escape. See, I'll put it like this. Most leaders treat innovation kind of like a fire extinguisher instead of using it to fireproof the house. And as long as we work like this, the things that once helped us deliver excellence and stand out could be the reasons we end up going obsolete. Well, the good news is, I don't think it has to go down like this. You see, for Robert, rejection was the perfect reason for him to find new reasons to play with his craft. And so he stops writing for money, and he starts just writing. He writes every day with no other goal than to experiment with the outer boundaries of his art. He writes beautiful poems and boring poems. He writes wonderful and weird poems, poems with rich metaphors, and poems you might be embarrassed to read in a second grade classroom. But quality didn't matter, because as Robert was about to discover, when our goals shift from excellence to exploration, we often end up finding both. You see, pretty soon, all of Robert's work began to improve. Soon his worst poems today are better than his best poems from 5 years ago. Soon he has poems in the New Yorker, the Atlantic, the Yale Review, and before the world knew what had hit them, Robert Frost had become the poet that we still read and teach today. For those of you with a life, that's the guy who wrote the poem about the road less traveled. The man who's written such unforgettable lines like, what but design of darkness to appall, if design governed in a thing so small, and if you don't understand what these words mean, that's how you know it's great poetry. I'm kidding, Robert Frost is dope, to be very clear. Once again, this is a story about poetry that's not really about poetry. See, for years, I worked at Google by day, and I wrote poems by night. And I know those worlds sound a universe apart, but here's the thing. Working in Silicon Valley as an artist showed me that for poets and professionals, the need we have to consistently reinvent our craft is literally existential. Like, the only reason poetry survived for thousands of years is because every single day, poets like Robert wake up, whether they're succeeding or struggling, and they ask themselves what one thing is they can do with their craft today that they didn't do with it yesterday. And I believe that attitude of proactive exploration will enable us to take this moment of excellence and turn it into momentum of excellence.